The ultimate all-in-one electric homebrewing system is here. The new Grainfather G40 can produce up to 11 gallons of beer and features all the latest advancements in homebrewing technology, including wireless control so you can monitor your brew day from the Grainfather app. With an innovative new grain basket design that improves workflow, reaching mash efficiencies of 75% or more is easy. The 3300-watt heating element brings your wort to a boil quickly without any scorching, and the large hop plate filter guarantees that no unwanted grain matter or hop trub reaches your fermenter. Every G40 comes standard with a high-powered built-in pump that can handle temperatures over 200 degrees Fahrenheit and a full 3-year warranty that guarantees you'll be able to keep on brewing no matter what. The Grainfather G40 is available now at your favorite homebrew retailer or online at grainfather.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Determining how much beer line you need, how long does Mitch sanitizer last in a bottle, managing your airlock, and is a diacetyl rest necessary when brewing a lager? This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 271. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com. Click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com over there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Kegwasher of kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey.
How are you doing, Todd?
Good. I'm doing great. How are you?
I just didn't know if it was okay to go back to asking you how you're doing or if we're still not doing that.
Yeah, it's been a pretty long day. Pretty rough.
You need a haircut. My goodness.
I need a hair. I'm going for the Boris Yeltsin look.
No, you can't joke like that, man. You can't joke like that.
You're talking about Boris Johnson, right?
Boris Johnson. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I don't think Boris Yeltsin had any hair.
I don't remember him having hair, but I don't remember him.
Boris Johnson. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I screwed that up, didn't I?
You messed that up. At least you have hair. I've embraced the bald, guys. I'm done. Like, look how far back it's gone. I'm done. My hair's gone. It's done. 36 years old. I'm going to pour out a beer. No, I'm not, because I'm cheap and I don't pour out beer. But I remember people, oh no, my thing is queuing up stuff on the screen. I remember people doing that. They pour out a 40 for the homie or whatever. I'm like, that's good. That's good alcohol. Maybe if you're not doing, what were those popular ones? Like Schlitz? Was that a popular 40, like the malt liquor?
The Bull.
The malt liquor version, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've never had that. I don't remember.
Colt 45,
but...
Next time we get together at the barn, I'll just have a selection of them for you.
Last time I was at the barn, Todd we were having what was that whiskey? It was so strong, and all his beer at 8 and something %. Oh yeah, it was. I had a good time. It was.
I sat in the hot tub by myself last night. My wife's out of town, so I had fun.
Yeah, you were drunk texting us. We know you're like, hey, just sitting in the hot tub thinking about stuff. I blocked your number. No, I
don't blame you. I would have too.
Your wife. That's so funny to me. When your wife goes out of town, you just amplify the things that you like to do already. So you're like,
absolutely.
You hang out in the hot tub more. You're not eating as good. I was just saying you might be eating more, but you're definitely not eating as good unless she left you some leftovers.
She left me leftovers.
Okay, so you're eating fine.
Oh yeah, he's eating just as good.
He's eating just as good. And before I get into official small talk, James, you finally have beer on tap at your house.
Yeah,
the Lemon Drop Pilsner.
I sent you guys a picture of the alt beer
that looks so.
That I was
incredible?
drinking last night. I made tacos for the girls and had an alt beer and watched some news and.
That alt
beer.
It
turned out really good. I'm so happy when I can do an alt beer and it's drinkable. You know,
when you brew alt beer, I've never seen you stress more on a brew day or about a beer because that's the one style. If people haven't had it before, they don't probably understand the nuances between that or like a run of the mill American Amber or something. And so, because you've brewed alt,
it's hard to hit.
Yeah, and you've brewed in the past a very solid beer, and you're like, no, but it's not. It doesn't have that alt.
Yeah, there's always one thing not right about it, But this time, I think it's got the correct smell. It's got the correct bite. It's the color is a little light. I mean, the color could be a little darker, but it's still kind of a copper color.
I love it. I think it turned out great, and I've been getting feedback from people who got their alt beer recipe and already brewed it, and they're like, I cannot wait. I'll let you know how it turns out. I can't. And they'll ask me the most awkward conversation. It's not awkward, but people are asking me, James, like, well, commercially available beers in the States, what would you suggest I compare it to? And I don't have a good answer for them.
Nothing.
I know.
I don't either. Yeah. You know what? That's a call to action for all of our listeners out there.
Yeah.
Do you know of any alt beer type style beer brewed in the United States that tastes like a actual alt in Dusseldorf? I'd love to find one.
It would be nice.
Yeah, I would too.
There are breweries who do them, and even I think so. The one in Fredericksburg, not my favorite German beer, but they renamed it to just Amber. I think they knew that what they were brewing.
Did they really?
Yeah. If you looked at the cans, I'm like 95% sure, and it doesn't say alt anymore on it. It says Amber. I'm like 95% sure that it doesn't say alt beer on it anymore. But I might be wrong. But I should have done my homework before making a claim. But then it wouldn't be me. But I'm pretty sure. But there's other commercially available ones too I've had before. I think Alaska has one and a Kolsch, and they're not bad. But the alt is not like a Dusseldorf alt. It's more like an American Amber, which that's not a bad thing. It could be a good beer, but remember
it's a bit sweet too.
It is a bit sweet. Not nearly as much as I think we've brought it up on the show before that we went to eat oysters at a place and we saw they had an alt beer on tap and they brought us a stout. And we were like,
exactly, because I didn't think we even asked them. I think you might have connected them to the wrong. I think
you poured the wrong beer, and they showed us no. And even the keg had. They're like, they opened up the fridge, and the keg had the label from the brewery. It said alt beer on it, and like, oh no one's called them out. Like, no, that's not an alt beer.
Yeah,
but it's 2022.
They're just using too much the really dark roasted malt, like 120L, or black. Patent,
I think it had to be black patent because it was a stout. But anyway,
it tastes just like a stout. Too much chocolate and too much dark bitterness.
Sweet. But it was drinkable. It just wasn't an alt. That's all.
Right. It wasn't refreshing like an alt. That's the one thing about alts is they're almost, Kolsch is a good lawnmower beer. It's very refreshing. I feel the same way about an alt beer. It's
I do too.
Really
malty.
Yeah, it's good.
And it's so funny how in Dusseldorf and Cologne, they're just like, oh, yours isn't beer. And I'm over here like, that's y'all's two beer. The only one I ever want to drink. That's all I want to drink.
Right. You haven't tried my lawnmower beer yet, have you?
You had it on tap? Oh, James.
I have not. Yeah, I would love to try one.
I know you have it on tap, but did you actually try it?
Yeah, I tried it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because your amber was so low, I didn't want to float it. And the breakfast
No, it floated. I need keg space. I'm trying to get rid of some of that beer.
You were giving me crap.
Yeah.
I wanted to drink the amber all night, and he goes, I don't even think there's a gallon left. My friends all drink it all. And so he was giving me a guilt trip.
I didn't mean for you to not drink it. I like to see you when you drink my amber. So
the amber. But I ended up drinking the alt all
it's
night.
high octane.
It is
so good though.
That's what I'm telling you. Between his amber, which was 7.8% or something, and that whiskey, it was a fun night. But let me move on.
I'm glad you had fun.
Every time, boss. Every time. So moving on, we do have official small talk.
With questions? We're going to have small talk. We just did that.
I just have announcements. I say small talk. I have announcements. It is March. The recipe for recipe receiving members, there it is on the screen. Recipe receiving members in our Trub Club will get the delicious brown porter that ships out with Imperial's Darkness. I'm looking forward to getting this brew day done. I absolutely forgot to bring home the recipe with me this last trip, so I'll probably be brewing it later, like when we're shipping them out to people too.
Hey,
so we can all.
Maybe I could.
You can brew
it. My wife's out of town.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to put pants on for brew day. You do whatever you want.
I could brew naked.
Yeah. So if you haven't,
so everybody's stabbing their mind's eye.
And I changed
right
the screen so they can't see our facial reactions to that. So yeah, if you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, get in one of our recipe receiving tiers, and you will get the brown porter shipped out to you. Also, this month's giveaway, a $50 gift card to kegconnection.com. It was a $25 gift card, but then our good friend Simon from England donated his $25, so now it's $50. And then if someone else donates, it'll be more. I'm not asking people to donate. A lot of people, I think, write in or call in now specifically for the gift card, which we're okay with. It's a mutually beneficial thing. We'll give you gift cards for your good content. So all of the information about our Trub Club you can learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club or sign up at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. We appreciate everyone who's in any given tier. We love you guys. We got new stickers that have been going out with recipes, and they'll go out to the lower tiers as well through postal service mail soon. And then, we're always looking at getting new stuff made. So we do appreciate everybody who's in our Trub Club. That's for you, Lorena. Moving on, we do have the Trub Club. We do, before we get to questions, Todd, one more segment. And let me make sure that it's up because it's time for listener feedback.
Oh my God.
Oh, I almost hit the voicemail too soon. Listener feedback. It's a long one, but a good one from our buddy Jonathan.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Jonathan. I just finished listening to the previous episode and had some feedback for you on the topics of pressure fermentation as well as the cold crash suckback issue. Pressure fermentation is something that I do occasionally with my stainless conical fermenters, but it is something that is very dependent on the recipe and what you're trying to achieve. Matt from Maryland mentioned that he was trying to replicate recipes and wondered if pressure fermentation would change the results of the recipe. Well, it definitely will. For instance, let's say you have a recipe that uses a typical ale yeast and you ferment unpressurized at 70 Fahrenheit. But if you're in a hot place like Texas and your fermenter is in the garage and you can't control the temperature, the same recipe fermented at, say, 90 degrees in the summer is going to have a very different and probably not very good result. And this is where pressurized fermentation can help. You can use pressure fermentation, and the pressure will suppress the esters that would normally be generated by that hot fermentation and deliver a result that may be indistinguishable from the one done at normal ale temperatures. This also works for lager yeasts, which normally require lower temps. But by pressurizing the vessel, you can run your fermenter at ale temps or even higher with no ill effects. Higher temps will also cause fermentation to finish much faster. Now, the results you'll have with pressure fermentation vary with the strain of yeast, the temperature of the fermentation, and the pressure that the yeast is subjected to. There are several online data resources for many yeast strains. Now, speaking of the pressure vessel, there were some terms that were used interchangeably in that last episode that I kind of wanted to clear up for safety reasons. The first is PRV, or pressure relief valve. These are typically set at the max allowable pressure that your vessel is rated for. Like for my spike fermenters, they are 15 psi. PRVs are a safety device and should never be used as a spunding valve. There should never be a shutoff valve between the PRV and your fermenter. Now, if you have a PRV that's popping off, it means you're doing something wrong. The second valve that you should always have when you're using pressurized fermentation is a spunding valve. Now, these are adjustable valves that you use to control the release of pressure at something below the rated pressure of the vessel. So in the case of a spike conical fermenter, somewhere between 0 and 15 psi. Now, if something were to go wrong with your spunding valve, it were to get clogged or stuck or something, the PRV would be there to save the day and release the built-up pressure. Now, a little postscript about the cold crash question earlier in the episode. If you have a fermentation vessel that will allow you to pressurize it, you can avoid the problems with suckback by either allowing a few psi to build right at the end of fermentation, or you can add pressure to the vessel via a CO2 bottle. Typically, 3 to 5 psi will be enough to drop from normal ale temps to cold crash temp. You have to be careful again here because with the vessel sealed, you can get into a negative pressure situation which can cause the vessel to collapse. Make sure positive pressure is maintained in the vessel until your cold crash temp is reached. Once it reaches that temperature, you'll notice the pressure slowly bleed off as it absorbs by the beer. At this point, you can add more CO2 via bottled force carb if you want. That's it. That's all I know about those two topics. And you guys keep it up with the great podcast. We'll talk to you later.
Jonathan, thank you. That's all I know. That was a lot more than I know.
Yeah, that's impressive. We need more feedback like that. That's
right?
great.
Yeah. Well, that's what I told Todd it came in. I was like, that's kind of long, and Todd's like, play it, just play it. I was like, you're right, because he had more information in 4 minutes than I have every week of my own. That's why I have you guys on the show.
Me too. Yeah. That's impressive.
That is. So pressure fermentation still, I would say, is something, I mean, it's interesting to me, but I'm so used to doing things how I do it. But it is intriguing for, like, I was looking at it. If I don't get a stainless one, I can get one of those like Blickman and or Firmzilla type PET ones. And in the garage, if pressure under fermentation with the appropriate equipment, and maybe that is what I do here. And we get the nicer stuff for my pop's house and, the glycol and all that. But it is time for me to inject that it is the best time ever to be alive as a home brewer. Like, who are like you can like, now I feel when we talk about people, they don't have the setup for lagering, we can go, well, if you just get this and this and pressure ferment, now you can't give them a hard time about that now. But anyways, Jonathan, thank you so much. Todd, you had something to add to it before.
Great stuff.
What's that?
You looked like you were, I cut you off or something. Mm-mm. Okay, perfect. Well, we do have 4 questions, starting with the first one. It's a voicemail from our buddy Mark, who used our hotline at 325-305-6107.
Hey guys, been loving the show and the Patreon. Been a loyal listener and subscriber for over a year now, and everything's been great. I've learned so much. This is Mark Myerson, and I have a question about line length. I know you guys recommend 5 feet of line from your keg to your tap, but I was listening to someone else, and they were saying that in a small homebrew kegerator situation, that 10 to 12 feet is a better line length. Can you tell me why 5 feet is better than 10 feet, and what is the right line length? Thanks.
This is a Todd Burns question if I've ever heard one.
Todd Burns question.
So if you do the calculations that beer installers and people have used forever, I think it comes out to 4.5 feet would be the proper restriction in a keezer, and so most people do 5 feet. However, the issue that people run into is variable. So if you are not able to maintain the temperature, so let's say your temperature is not, recommended temperature is between 36 and 38 degrees. So if your kegerator tends to run a little hot, then you would need more line because you would need more restriction. If you overcarbonate your beer a little bit, you would need more line and more restriction. So here's the thing: there is no correct amount of line to put in your kegerator or your keezer if you're using line to do the restriction. It can be variable. So on our website, when you order a kit, we give you a choice of adding it as putting your lines at 5 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet, and 15 feet. 15 feet? That seems a little excessive. And I personally think it is. The problem that you run into when you get really, so let me back up. It's always a give and take. So the shorter your line, the faster your pour will be. The longer your line, the slower your pour will be. So technically, if you want to put 20 feet on your kegerator, keezer, and you want to dispense with 20 feet, beer will come out, but you have to stand there for a while to fill your glass up, but it's not going to foam probably unless you've got a major issue. Although to open up a whole can of worms, it probably will foam because a bunch of CO2 is going to collect in the line because you got so damn much line there, right? So,
right.
I mean, there's always a give and take with everything. I tell, if people ask me and they're worried about it, I usually tell them to maybe try the 7 or 10 foot. It for the most part, it's not going to hurt anything. The lines in all of my kegerators and keezers generally range about 2 or 3 feet because I don't restrict with a line. I restrict with a faucet using flow control. So I don't think that there's necessarily a right answer. The answer is based on your temperatures, your carbonation level, and those types of things. So the general consensus in the industry for people that install kegerators is 5 feet, and that's what people have always used in the industry is 5 feet. So that's where that 5 foot comes from. But put whatever you want to in there. And then one last thing, if you, let's say you put 15 feet because you're real worried about it, and then your pour is really slow, it's very easy to shorten the line. It's very hard to make it longer. So you could always opt for a little bit longer line, like 10 feet, and then start to cut that down as you realize that you don't have an issue and that 6.5 feet works fine for your system. So that's my answer.
You know what? One thing you forgot to mention that whole talk, and I gotcha. What is the inner diameter? Is that a factor? Does that have anything to do with the kind of length you need for your line?
I assumed, which I always tell you not to do, Josh.
You do.
I assumed that he was talking about ordering on our site.
Yeah.
And on our site, it's 3/16 ID. So
yes,
everybody uses 3/16 ID. But I will tell you this. When we first started 16 years ago, I didn't know that. And we sold some kits that had 1/4 inch line. And then I determined that it really needed 3/16 line. Nobody ever complained. Like I never got a phone call.
You're kidding.
Well, we didn't sell that many kits, but still it's amazing to me because what I know now, if you use 1/4 inch line, obviously. Now I use 5/16 ID line on most of my systems, or I use 1/4 inch braided, and 1/4 inch braided soda line has virtually no resistance. Right. Where it probably has actually less than 5/16 beer line does, because 5/16 beer line at least has some restriction. Anyway, it's pretty straightforward.
And I am glad you clarified about the 5/16, because if you were using flow control and proper flow control, like the CM Becker V10s that he has, or the X1s that I have at my house,
I have both. Yeah,
right. They you can get away with 2 feet, 3 feet, because all the restrictions happening with the compensator within the faucet shank. So you could. You're not going to notice at all. If you try doing 2 or 3 feet of 3/16 from your keg to your tap, you might have some issues with that. If your restrictions being done only through the beer line, right?
Yeah. And inline flow control is the same thing. A lot of people end up buying that with 1/4 inch barbs, and probably they're putting 3/16 line on it. And I would, if you're going to use it, that's fine, but use 1/4 inch braided. Or get the bigger barbs and use 5/16 beer line.
I always love the troubleshooting that goes on in like Facebook groups or Reddit threads, because they're not necessarily wrong, but there'll be some curmudgeon who, like, someone will say, someone will say, I have 6 feet of 3/16 line and I'm having these issues. And instead of troubleshooting it like that video you did, Todd, on foam issues, where like there's a whole lot of other factors that it might be, the immediate recommendation every time is Oh yeah, I'd bump it up to 12 feet, or I'd bump it up to, like there's
just blindly.
The sky's the limit. Like one of these days I'm gonna go troll them. Like 40 feet. I would do 40 feet. You're not.
I would just buy a box, 100-foot box,
100 feet,
and just connect it on there.
And you're not gonna get foam. You're not.
No, you will not.
You're not going to get any beer.
You're not going to get any beer for 5 minutes, but you're not going to get any foam, damn it. And I love it every time. And like I said, I've been so close. The only reason I don't troll is because I think people can go to my profile and see who I work for. And then I don't need Todd reading more hate mail than usual about me. Did you know your director of marketing, if that's what he even is online telling us 100 feet of hose for restriction? But your
director of marketing is an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you not get his business card? I've already changed it. Yeah. But Mark, no, that's like the thing Todd's saying though. 5 feet without restriction of 3/16 tubing, just using that, it has worked for a ton of people in applications that we've sold. I think, Todd, if I was a betting man, I'd say the 7-foot option, since we allowed it in kits. In my anecdotal observations on our orders, it seems like the most popular, and I think that's people.
I would say it's the most popular if people change it.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, the 5 foot still the one we sell the most.
You're right. No, yes, correct. I meant when people change length.
Oh, when they yeah.
I see it usually going to 7, and I think that's them just kind of covering their bases, because people will say, "Oh, anywhere between 5 and 10." So they see 7, and they're like, "Okay, well that cuts me in the middle almost." So I think that that's good. Mark, thank you so much for submitting the question. Reminding everyone, if and when you submit a question that we take on a future episode, we do give you a gift card to kegconnection.com. When it's a voicemail like Mark, you get a $25 gift card instead of a text feedback or a question where we give you $15 to Keg Connection. But either way, it's free money. It's Todd's money. So thank you, Mr. Burns, for your generosity. Moving on to question number 2 was a text from our buddy Terry, using our hotline as well at 325-305-6107. Terry wrote, Q about how long sanitizer stays good for. Is it okay to mix some up in a bottle, use what I need, and shelf the bottle until next time? What are you laughing at?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just thinking about when Lorena visited, the story she told you.
Which one? And Lorena, by the way, how dare you?
Oh, Lorena, about her sanitizer. I thought you told me the story that she told you about how long she.
I don't remember.
Y'all mix up new sanitizer every time, and she's like, I've had the same bottle for like 10 years. I mix it up and use it for like a year.
No way. I don't remember that at all.
I may be exaggerating but I swear you told me that.
Oh, I say a lot of things.
Okay.
Before your input though, James, I've seen in the brew room there at headquarters a bottle of sanitizer. Is there a timeline that you're like, I'm gonna use this only for this amount of time, or well, first off, let's talk about, there's other factors. We use Sandstep, which is made for hard water, and its efficacy is longer lasting if you have hard water. That one of the things on other sanitizers was people with hard water were noticing, oh my God, like it was losing its efficiency very quickly, right? And so that's a factor.
Oh, I had two infected batches
because the efficiency
with my well water.
Right, exactly. So with that kind of in mind, using one that can last long in hard water, do you like mixing up bottles and leaving it there for brew day, for the spraying down of connections and all that stuff? That, not like a keg, you're not gonna, obviously a keg, we make a batch on brew day for a keg, but do you like to keep a bottle of sanitizer around, and how long will you keep it around?
Well, absolutely. I just always thought maybe a month, and I'll dump it and mix a new solution. I could be wrong about that, but me, if I think it's older than a month, I'll dump it and mix fresh
and keep it around. And
but I could be wrong about that.
And Todd, I've noticed you have the same bottle in the barn that I feel like you're taking the Lorena Evans approach. It might be no. How long?
Not at all.
Oh, I don't
ever save it.
You don't?
No, I just mix it up when I'm brewing. Now, if I'm brewing one day and I'm going to be, say, doing some transferring the next day or in a couple of days, I might let the 5-gallon bucket of sanitizer sit there. But for the most part, I just mix it up each time. I mix a fresh batch each time.
Oh, okay. Maybe you have so many different spray bottles of different stuff. I probably assumed one of them was your sand step. It might have been like your pure green, or what is that other?
Yeah. Cleaner.
Yeah, other surface cleaners and stuff. You have a lot of chemicals actually lying around. It doesn't seem like a safe environment now that I think about it. I know plenty of people.
For you, it may not be.
Yeah, my dog, I'm scared to bring him there. My pop and I are like y'all, where we use iodophor. We don't use sandstep. I don't actually remember iodophor and hard water if that's an issue, but we use it day of as need be, so it's never been an issue for us. I've never considered keeping a bottle on. I imagine if I was brewing at the frequency Todd Burns has been brewing this year, it might make sense to have a spray bottle, because there is always things that you need quickly, that you don't need to have to just submerge, that you can spray quick to be safe. And having a spray bottle seems like it would make sense to have. But like you said, James, I don't know. A month seems long. And how do you know if it lost its efficiency? Well, you did an infection, and that would suck, right? To determine.
Yeah. It sounds like a Rick question. Maybe we should ask Rick and get back to people.
We should.
And I think you can also test sanitizer, especially acid-based sanitizer, with pH test strips. But you have to know, that would be another question to ask Rick. And what pH does that need to be at before it starts losing its effectiveness?
We haven't had Rick
or just mix up a fresh batch every time, and we'll sell you more. We're happy to.
Yeah, exactly. That's even better.
Yeah. The Todd Burns, just don't be poor. That's I like, but it's true. Like you use a bottle. I get the 32-ounce bottles of iodophor or sandstep. They last forever. Maybe I'm not brewing a whole lot, because we're using 1 ounce per 6 gallons for that sandstep. So and my pop and I will 5-gallon batch, or 6 gallon, 5.5 ish, whatever is what we're making every time, and that is enough for us to get the keg sanitized, all the things we need sanitized, because we transferred from vessel to vessel.
That's what I do.
Right. To make the most use of it. We're not making a batch of sanitizer for every need of a brew day or a transfer day or a kegging day. It's on that day we make a batch, and then the faucet needs to be sanitized because we're cleaning this day too. Okay, throw it in there. Or the pack of yeast, throw it in there. And airlock, everything, all the above. And then that goes in the keg or whatever. But yeah, Terry, we will ask Rick from Logic, who has not been on the show in probably 3.5 years. It's been a while since we've had Rick on the show. We will ask Rick. I'll email him and see what he gets. And we'll put that in a future episode's feedback. Or maybe we could get Rick to call it in and play his voice back. I'd like that voicemail.
We're not giving him $25 though. I just want to say that up front.
Rick, you're not getting any of our money. But anyways, Terry, thank you so much for submitting that question. Moving on, I've got another voicemail from Mr. Todd Burns. This one comes from our buddy Andre from Michigan.
Hi guys, this is Andre. I'm calling from Michigan, and I wanted to ask you guys a question about managing your airlock. For instance, specifically, I want to know, when do you know that you're stuck in terms of the fermentation? I made an alt beer from extract, and I used Saf Ale 05, and I pitched it and put the airlock, and after 5 days, I didn't really see any bubbling, and I don't really see any levels that are uneven on the airlock. And so I guess my question is that I've tasted the beer, it tasted good, and I smell it, and it smells pretty good. How long do I wait? How do I test? And is that normal for Saf Ale to not really bubble, or bubble real slowly? Do different yeasts cause different bubbling? I'm sure the answer is yes, but I want to know in this specific case some guidelines about managing an airlock. How do you know when your fermentation is going? Thanks a lot. Love the show. I've learned a ton of stuff, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andre. We've gotten questions like this before. I'm assuming, which you love, Todd, when I assume, we've gone over that, that he's brewing, fermenting in a bucket, probably. And I think one of the biggest fermentation blubs I've ever had is not seeing activity because I didn't fasten the bucket all the way down and air was escaping out in another place. Do you think that that's what's happening to Andre on this alt beer? Is that
it could be. Yeah. I mean, it's happened to me a bunch of times. And it's almost always a little fiber of the plastic from when you take the lid off is actually, it's not that I didn't close it all the way. It's that or something else is caught in between the O-ring and the bucket. And it's just enough to crush that O-ring down so the gas can escape. It's happened to me a lot of times. I don't worry about it terribly because everything's pretty closed up. So what's coming out is going out. It's not sucking back in. I've never, and usually by that time I figure out what's going on. I'll take it apart, look at it, get it to where it works again. I mean, obviously the best thing to do is to open it up and look and see if you've got, high krausen. See if you've got activity. You probably do, and you're probably fine. And then also, if you're not sure and it's been 5 days, take a hydrometer reading and see where you are.
That you stole my thunder. I was about to throw it to James and say, let's assume he had krausen and he tasted it, tastes good. It smelled it, smells good. The next step is a gravity reading with the hydrometer, right?
Absolutely. That'll tell you everything. First of all, you're going to have a initial or starting gravity. But let's say for some reason you never took a starting gravity. You still know where you're kind of supposed to be at when you get done brewing. And if you're down to 10, 12, and you didn't see the airlock bubbling, Todd's right. You probably had a seal on the lid that it didn't make a good seal. Another thing, if you've got a bucket, one thing you can do is when you put the airlock on, just push down on the lid a little bit. If you see the liquid in the airlock go up and down, then you have a good solid seal. But we've many times, you remember Todd Nancy brewed an alt beer in a bucket and there was absolutely no activity and she thought it was stuck fermentation and it turned out to be pretty good beer. And it had, like Todd said, it had a little burr on the seal ring on the lid and it didn't make a good seal for the lid.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm filling up 3 buckets, it's almost always going to happen in one of those buckets. Now, I will say I got new buckets not too long ago because there's a dog laying over here y'all can't see, but this dog loves to chase lids. And Charlie, were you bad? Anyway, he loves to chase lids, but has a hard time distinguishing between a junk lid from the office and one of my good brew lids. So I found out that when he ate all my brew lids the other day while I was cleaning my buckets, that the lids we have now don't fit the buckets we used to have. So I had to get new buckets. When I got new buckets and new lids, none of them leaked. So we may have just had some that made more of those little shards when you were taking that tab off the bucket. I don't know. But anyway, I had it happen almost every time.
I think everyone who's brewed with buckets over a prolonged period of time understands the deterioration of the lid is a part of it. And I remember Jason Chalifer a couple weeks ago had said that when you're brewing with buckets, unfortunately, that's just a part of it. You have to replace the lid at some point. It may not be 1 year, 2 year, maybe longer than that. But because every time taking it off, putting it on, it just keeps killing that lid where you're gonna, it's not gonna always properly seal. I talked to our buddy Daniel recently, who we brewed with the alt beer and had he has the broad Todd. He got a CF15, and I chuckled, Todd, because his first batch on the CF15s, and most of these conicals have it, that gasket that has to go on perfectly right around the top, otherwise you get some air leaking coming out. And he thought, it wasn't a whole lot of activity, I don't know what's going on. It was because it wasn't perfectly sealed, and so air was escaping. And I was just chuckling because you've had that. You have spent a lot of time making sure the seal goes on, but when I watch you have to do it by yourself, it's a circus sometimes where you, especially like it was slippery because he's trying to put it down and it comes out one side.
Yeah, I don't know. I should contact Spike and see about getting a new seal. I don't know if they had issues with seals for a while, but their seal's not big enough. It doesn't stay in that groove. I mean, James, you've had the same issue, I think.
Yep. It'll it'll drop off when you go to try to put the lid back on. There's not enough. It's not thick enough to hold itself in that groove in the ring in the lid.
Upside
and it'll
down.
drop
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, these are both first gen CF15s, so you're right. It's worth reaching out and seeing like, hey, did this part of it get or get you a new one or something? Because it is, you always get it to work, Todd. It's just funny watching you sometimes do it by yourself. Because then eventually,
I don't know how I haven't spoiled a beer because I've got my elbows all over it, and
it's frustrating.
One time I was in there, James, watching him, and eventually he just looks at me and goes, "Are you going to help me? Are you going to help me?"
Yeah, I thought about next time I have to put that damn gasket on. I think I may try to figure out a way to do sanitizer in my shower so I could just shower in sanitizer before I get
right. So you can put your elbows all over it. Yeah. No, but that.
So did he give you a sample? Did you get to taste the sample?
I did. His
beer?
blonde, and so he had. Yeah, Daniel, poor guy, had like he bought 2 slap pats or smack pats from Y Yeast, and he forgot to smack them. And so he probably had some pitching issues. And so he was telling me, "Hey, will you taste this? Because I think something's off." And I couldn't, it tasted like a very, his numbers were a little off because of water to grain ratio and some other stuff. I thought it tasted great. He was very self-conscious about his beer, and it reminded me of you, James, because it's like, try it, but it's not that good.
That was his very first
brew
on
ever, and ever, not just on the Brow Talk.
Awesome.
I liked it. I told him, I said, don't. He was thinking about dumping it. He brewed a 10-gallon batch. I said, don't dump this. Are you kidding me? I said,
dump it into 2 kegs, and I'll take one.
Now it finished super low ABV, but it's there, and especially for your first beer, share. That's a neighbor beer. Like, hey man, come over, watch the game, got some beer for you, and don't give them the good stuff. Give them the stuff that you were thinking about dumping. But I thought it ended up great. But back to
to be fair, the only beer I ever remember us dumping, it was scorched. It needed to be dumped.
The scorched,
IPA,
red. It was supposed to be a red IPA.
And the Roggen beer. The Roggen beer, the one that I did.
See, I never got to taste it.
Okay, so we have dumped more than one. I mean, I certainly have dumped beers in the past, but I'm talking about in the recent future.
Oh yeah,
past.
That day we did the video. Yep.
So I think some tips before we let Andre's question go. Making sure you have a seal, like James said. If pushing down on it after you put your airlock in, you'll know if you have a good seal or not. But if you don't see vigorous activity, because sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't, and yeast strains can make the difference. Obviously they sponsor the show, but we were pushing them way before they ever sponsored the show. Imperial Yeast, sometimes it finishes quicker than you are paying attention to your fermentation vessel, where 2 or 3 days go by and you think, oh, I should go check on activity, and there's hardly any at all. And you're like, oh no, it didn't ferment. Where it's like, no, take a reading because it's done. It's already done. It didn't take the 8 or 9 days some recipes tell you it might take.
And Safel 05 is usually a pretty good fermenter. I mean, for good yeast as far as activity, you usually get a pretty good activity out of 05.
Yeah, it's a good one to have in the freezer.
Absolutely,
just for that reason.
James is the reason.
Fermentations.
One other thing I'd mention before we go is that, again, this has happened to me a lot of times. I'd say more than 10 times that I've had it where I wasn't sure if I had any activity. I've opened the bucket. I've checked for the krausen. I've tried to seal the bucket. I've taken the O-ring off. I've done everything. All those times and taken readings, all these different things. Of all those times, I have never spoiled a batch of that beer. And usually I've got 2 other buckets that aren't having the problem. So I get to try all 3, and I've never tasted a difference. So, you got to be sanitary. You got to be careful, but taking a lid off and taking a reading or doing this or doing that, it's not like there's all these buggies waiting on the outside that are going to rush in. You'll be fine doing that.
Todd is the physical embodiment of relax, don't worry. And he's having a homebrew while he's doing it. We filmed that beer line cleaning kit video, and he insisted on having a beer, but we had to do 500 tapes, and so he had like 8.5 beers. By the end of it, he was like, I have to have a beer to finish my cleaning day. Todd is embodiment of that. But anyway,
I'm going to watch that video. I think you may be exaggerating
a little bit. I'm exaggerating just a little bit. Andre,
I'd say I had 1.5 beers. Well, and those were 7 ounce.
They were
beers.
7 ounce
I think
increments.
I can handle that.
Yeah, I know you can. Andre, thank you so much for submitting your question. We've got one final question for this week's episode, come from our buddy Aaron, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Aaron wrote, "Hey HHH crew, longtime listener who hates the sound of their own voice, so I'm okay with just a $15 gift card. Before I get to my question, I have to tell you that the best piece of advice I can give a new homebrewer who starts the keg is to get genuine CMB disconnects from the beginning. Years ago, I thought saving a few bucks was worth it, but the phony balonies started leaking only a few weeks in. I swapped them for CMBs after reading reviews, and they're working perfectly after many years of intense usage. I love them. Okay, my question is about diacetyl rest. Here's the scenario I'd like feedback on. If you brewed a Czech lager right before a trip, but you did have time to set up the diacetyl rest, then had to leave town for a week, would you rather leave the lager at primary temps and forego doing a diacetyl rest, or do the diacetyl rest for over a week until you returned? Thanks again for the great content and keep up the good work, Aaron." Yeah, I knew you'd like that one. People are getting clever with how to get their questions on the show. They know sucking up to me is always a sure one, but like if they can mention, if they could suck up to James too, whoo, yeah, you're getting on the show.
That's an easy one. Do the diacetyl rest. And here's why I say that. If you go away and you leave it at the primary fermentation temp, you're not going to have any sugars left over for the diacetyl rest to work. So the yeast have to eat at room temperature to eat up the diacetyl. So if you go away and it's going to continue to ferment down to final gravity and it has diacetyl in it, it's going to remain, the sugar's going to be gone. You warm it up to 70, it's not going to do anything. You still have diacetyl. So the whole purpose of diacetyl, when I do a diacetyl rest, I hit like 1020. Then I go to room temp, and then there's still enough gravity in the wort for the yeast to still continue to consume the sugars, but it also consumes the diacetyl. So no sugars, no way to get rid of the diacetyl. So absolutely go to diacetyl rest. You're going to be fine at a week. And then when you get back, you can do your cold crash and everything's good.
I was going to ask, I've never done a diacetyl rest. What is the average time you think a diacetyl rest takes? 4 days?
I just wait. When I hit 1020, around 1020, I go to room temp and then I just wait for it to hit final. Sometimes it takes a couple of days. Sometimes it'll take a week. Just depends on your cell numbers when your initial pitch, oxygenating your wort when you throw your yeast in. All of that has the viability of the yeast, how healthy it is. As it goes down, if it's super healthy and you go to 1020, you do your room, bring it up to room temp, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 days and you're done. Then you can cold crash, but a week's not going to hurt anything.
And that covers the bases, right? Because that's what the meat of the question is, like, worried about, I guess, infection, keeping it at that higher temp for a week. Is that the?
It's still sealed,
right?
So it's not you. But the whole purpose of diacetyl rest is you want the yeast to eat the sugar and the diacetyl.
That would cause
But if there's no sugar, it can't eat the diacetyl, so it still remains. And if you leave it at primary and you do have diacetyl and you go away, it's going to continue to ferment down to final gravity. It'll eat the sugars and not the diacetyl. So diacetyl is more prevalent in a lager strain, or a lager yeast produces diacetyl at the colder temperatures. We have not had much issue. I don't think, Todd, I don't think we have. I don't have brewed anything with diacetyl.
Y'all haven't. I have. Y'all have not.
No.
Actually,
I've never had an issue with it.
I'm not going to name names, but there was a commercial brewery lately whose Facebook ad popped up in my feed, and I'm not going to throw jabs at them, but they were pitching this thing called a butterscotch blonde, and and instead of saying, like, you remember when I've brewed diacetyl beers, and I've brewed the estery, like the banana clove kind of Kolschweizen. I need better marketing, because they didn't, instead of dumping this batch, which is probably a 30 barrel is probably what they're brewing, or whatever. Let's say they're brewing a 1 barrel. They didn't want to dump it. So instead they're like, oh, try our new butterscotch blonde. It'll remind you of grandma. So maybe there is a future market, guys, for diacetyl beer. I don't know. I mean, what do I know? Todd,
I read somewhere years ago that, and I don't remember where, so y'all have to Google and prove me wrong, but that at one point, like 100 or 200 years ago, that it was a desired taste in beer, that people kind of expected it in their beer in certain regions and wanted the diacetyl in there. So, wow. I guess you could, some people, maybe some people like that. No. I mean, I do remember being at my grandmother's house and sitting in my great grandmother's house. She always gave me butterscotch candy.
Yeah.
If she would have given me butterscotch if she would have given me diacetyl beer, I'd probably like it now.
You probably would like it. Well, I was going to say, in the ancient beer, that's just more evidence. 100 years isn't ancient, but it's just more evidence to my premise that ancient beer was probably garbage by today's standards. That you said desired. I think you cleared it up with the second word you used, which was expected. No, it was more expected because they didn't have as good a temperature control.
Maybe people 300 years ago would try your Kolsch now and go,
hey, that
God.
the Kolsch, now that I've learned how to brew it. But that one Kolsch, they would be like, this.
No. I mean, the perfect Kolsch or a perfect lager, good Kolsch. And say, there's no taste at all of that. I don't like it.
Yeah. No, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Oh, they probably go, holy crap, this is good. How did you do this?
Yeah. And then burn you at the stake for being a witch.
They would burn you. That's what I think would happen. And James, I literally have absolutely nothing to add to that answer because you answered exactly what I would have said and better. Yeah, that's exactly right.
No, and I always like it when we actually have a very black and white, clear cut. Do not forego the diacetyl rest, Aaron, because that will lead that the end result could be way worse than. The diacetyl rest, like James was saying, with the diacetyl being more prevalent in those strains, you want to take care of that. Now, I know, we've talked to people, we've looked at recipes where some people do diacetyl rest on certain ales, and you might be able to get away with not doing a diacetyl rest with an ale, right? I've never done it.
Yeah, I don't know of an ale yeast off the top of my head, and you guys can comment in on this. That creates any kind of diacetyl at room temperatures,
right? Not like the lager yeast, but
I'm sure it does. But because of the fact that it's fermenting at room temperature, it gets consumed anyway. So,
right.
It's just more prevalent because you're fermenting at colder temperatures, and that diacetyl can pop up. There are Harvest is a good lager yeast, and it produces very low amounts of diacetyl. So, I'm sure if you're using Harvest, you may not even need to do one. I always do one anyway, just because it doesn't hurt anything. And if it happens to be in there, then you're taking care of it.
We need to just run an Imperial commercial of you talking about Harvest, because that is your go-to. That is the James Carl. Is it Y Yeast or is it White? It's White Labs that has Denny's favorite, right? And from Denny Con, they need Imperial. I know y'all listen or watch. We need to have a James Carlson's favorite. Relabel your Harvest or do a special limited run that I can give to our Trub Club or something. Because every time we have a lager, that's your go-to. I'm like, oh, you want to use like Global? Yeah. No, Harvest. Oh, you want to use Urkel? No, Harvest.
I've used all three and they're all fantastic. Sure, but Harvest it's highly flocculent, so it's not real super powdery. So powdery, if you don't have a filter, requires extended cold storage or cold lagering to kind of get it clear, drop out clear. But the fact that it produces low amounts of diacetyl, it's highly flocculent. You can keg it fairly quick, and it is pretty bright. It's a good all around lager yeast.
All this talk, man. When are you brewing a lager again, dude? When's the next lager?
I haven't brewed since we did that brew day with Daniel.
I know and that was the alt beer, which turned out fantastic. But you need to make a Czech lager. That's what I want you to do. He's talking about Czech lager.
Yeah, do that next one.
Yeah, that's what I want. I think you made a Bohemian Pilsner recipe for us one time, right? It's like basically an Urquell clone.
I've got one in my recipe database.
Yeah, you should do that. I don't want to
friend
influence you. You should do that. do a Sonoma clone.
Yeah.
And Todd,
definitely.
And like I said, your lemon drop, what James knows, your lemon drop Pilsner.
Oh, it's so good. That's the best beer, homebrew beer I've had.
Period. Yeah. James is not I'm like, no, you just have the honeymoon. He's like, no, it's the absolute best. It's
work of art.
You said it's better than the ESB, which is what I remember being the best homebrewed beer he's ever done.
Yep. In fact, I had my last glass last night.
Did you?
Oh,
no.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I have
to. It was perfect, Todd. I'm telling you that I can always tell when it's getting low because it was absolutely brilliantly clear, perfect head of foam, great aroma, great Pilsner bite. Fantastic job.
I'll have to have another one tonight. You know what I drank last night? I drank one of your Hellas, and it was
the Hellas is super good,
really, really good, and it's been in that kegerator for a while. You know, what I drank mostly was one of those experimental hop beers. I only have one left, and it happens to be the one, and I can't remember which one it is, but the hop that
Emerald Spire,
the one that
right?
Is it? So it's the one that I really like the best, but I know it's like the keg won't go empty. So last night I was like, I am drinking nothing but this tonight. And then at some point I had to have a Hellas because I had.
And that pale ale is the lowest ABV beer you have on tap, and it's like 6 or 5 point something, isn't it? It's like 5.6, 5.8.
No, I have one on there that's 5.12. That may be I think that is the lemon drop. Yeah,
the lemon. Okay.
One of them's right at 5%. That's the fairly recent one I brewed. I can't remember which one though.
And I have to tell you, my pop loves that Smash IPA, the Galaxy Smash. I'm glad I brought it home, and it worked out because James got the best beer ever brewed on the face of the earth.
I'm telling you, you guys, y'all need to. We need to put that. Have we done that as a selection of the month?
I don't believe so.
No, we should. We should. Yeah.
It's a good beer.
That Smash is good too, but it's got a lot of alcohol. I think.
Yeah, it's smooth.
You could call it next time. I'm going to call it Get Smashed IPA.
That is how it turned out. It was a Get Smashed Galaxy IPA. But anyway, we're digressing. Aaron, thank you so much for submitting the question, guys. That's all I have for this week. I appreciate y'all's time. I will not be up there next week. And Todd, you're traveling, right? I don't know if you'll be up there when I'm up there next. So
because I don't know when you're going to come, but I'm leaving towards the end of the week for Florida, and then I'll be coming back 2 days into the following week.
You'll be okay. I'm going to be there that whole week because we're sending out the recipes. I'll put it on the screen again. That brown porter we'll be sending out not next week, but the week after. And so you'll be right in the middle there while I'm covered in milled grains and smell like hops and stuff. So
if I come back, you
are going to Florida.
If we're going to the Keys over the weekend, I may just stay there. So we'll see.
Guys,
can y'all, James? Can you just send me money every week?
Can you just, yes, sir, boss. All right, guys, thank you so much.
I suppose so.
I will talk to y'all later. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or, hey, you could be Todd's best friend by leaving us a voicemail at 325-305-6107. Brew better beer with the new Grainfather G40 all-in-one electric system, available now at grainfather.com. Also, get a free pack of Imperial Yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join our Trub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour to learn more. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.